What's up, guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. Today going to be giving a little bit of attention and some love to the dark emerald green coupe. Got the booster pack sitting on it here because, well, this car hasn't moved or been started in probably at least a month. So gonna get it started and inside the shop, and two things I need to do. Number one, got to finish off the trim here. So we'll get this prepped up, sanded down, and painted up. Same thing with the quarter windows. All the other trim has been pulled off and painted. Looks like I'm gonna have to do the door handles here as well. Get that all cleaned up. But you can see there's tons of pine needles and debris and everything else. So we get all this cleaned up before we reinstall stuff. But the main objective is to see what's going on this floor down here, and probably start cutting and welding. So gonna get it inside, and we'll pull the seat out, probably pull both front seats, center console, and really get a good idea of how the floor is, and hopefully we can find the cause of the issue as well while we're in there. So let's get the car inside. Whoa, just barely. Alright guys, doors are open, not wasting any time. Let's go ahead, get these seats unbolted, center console unscrewed, and pull this carpet out. I have to pull a couple of seat belts. That way we'll have really good access to everything and be able to get a really good idea of how things really look underside this carpet. There we go, guys. 26 minutes later and the carpet is out. Everything came out with ease. Everything was where it was supposed to be. Even the screws on the side of the center console metal bracket were actually fastened in there. The only thing that wasn't was the screws in the back here underneath the armrest. For some reason those guys weren't installed, but everything else was there. The passenger side of the floor looks beautiful. No issues. Driver's side is pretty much as expected. But what I'm gonna do here is just flip the carpet over. And what we can do is this kind of gives you a little bit of telltale on what's going on. So you can see here, this is very wet. And in the back here is actually pretty damp as well. More damp than I thought it would be. So clearly moisture was getting in on both the back side and the front side. The difference being is that the front side has that you know, sound deadening type material, which you can still see in place on the passenger side. And moisture got underneath that slowly and created a nice little ecosystem for rust and corrosion, creating issues like all these holes that we see here. So on the back side, that stuff doesn't exist. So I think it was allowing, you know, things to be able to dry up and not get caught in between those layers, therefore not rot. So everything on this backside, a lot of this is more of the color of rust from a little bit of surface rust than actual rust. You can see there's paint underneath all this. This can all get cleaned up, which is good, which means I'm not going to have to worry about cutting anything from here back. We're going to be focusing just in this front section here. So I guess that's the good news ultimately. And this is a note to you guys who like your Dynamat and your sound deadening or anything else that you put down. If you have moisture getting in your car and the moisture isn't able to get out and escape, this is a potential liability. So you want to make sure that whatever product you're using is sealing any moisture or water from being able to get in. So when you're putting down that Dynamat and you're going around all these curves, or Killmat, Noico, whatever you're using, make sure that it is sealing 100% so that you don't end up with moisture getting trapped. Real Canadian, not a horribly hard test to do here. You can see it is draining out down there. Question is it coming in the car? So I'm going to keep pouring up here. And we will keep looking down there. All right, gone through the whole water bottle. And it's coming out where you would want it to. So water's draining where we want it. Don't see any more moisture coming in here. Any of that little bit of moisture that you might see is actually from dampness of the sound deadening up there. But I'll keep my eyes on things. We'll see how it's going. All right, guys, almost got this all out. Do you remember this car? This is Notorious's donor for his Project Zero, and I sweet talked him into letting me take any bits of floor pan that I need out of this. So he's already taken his bit of rear passenger side here that he needed. But the whole section that we're gonna need for the front is here and available and in really good shape. So there we go, guys. Drilled out all the spot welds, managed to chisel off that section of the frame and little support for where your transmission crossmember goes. And yeah, not a fun job. Took about an hour. Cutting took about 10 minutes. So hour and a quarter. I got a section of OE floor pan here. Obviously it still needs to be trimmed to fit. So anyways, you can walk over, throw it in the car, see how it looks. All right, guys, there we go. Just needs to be trimmed to fit. But other than that, got a nice section of solid floor pan there. So measure stuff up, trim it, get that prepared, and the welding can commence. All right, guys, I just brought in the emerald green notch so that I could start test fitting some of the floor pan stuff. Can you hear that? Sounds like the alarm's having a fit. It's actually been going off randomly all day. Clearly it doesn't do anything because the car still started up fine. So I think this is going to merit for a video on how to remove unwanted alarms from your Foxbody and double check your wiring to see if they hacked into it, and if they did, how to fix it. So, got our mock-up done here with the floor pan. Everything's fitting pretty good. I'm gonna have to do a few last tweaks on it and just kind of clean up a little bit of surface rust that's just been sitting around here. So I'll make sure that that all gets cleaned up, and we'll have to get everything prepped and ready for some welding, and probably clean up stuff like this little seat bolt right here. Very common problem as well. So we'll make sure that that gets cleaned up. And that'll be pretty much it. Got everything prepped out here, got the welder dragged over, and now it's gonna be time to start tacking this floor pan into place. I have made sure everything is lining up. I've ground down all the surfaces to get them prepped up and clean. And just before I do that, I am going to shoot a little bit of primer on the bottom sides on the areas that once it's welded in, I'm not going to be able to access. And that's important because if we just leave a bunch of bare metal exposed, what's going to happen is that it's just going to create an opportunity for some rust to come. So we want to make sure that we seal up any of that bare metal first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll get back in and start welding this guy in place. Pan all welded in here from the inside, and everything's looking good. I'm just going through with a little die grinder here and grinding off some of my welds. Not the prettiest welds in the world, but hey, they'll do the trick, right? So just going to get everything cleaned up, and then make sure everything from the underside is looking good. If there's any touch-ups from underneath there that need to be done at all, I know there is the one part of the transmission cross member bracket. Sometimes that one actually just, it breaks off by default, and it was bent down quite a bit. So you're gonna have to get underneath there and get that tacked from the bottom side. And once that's all done, we'll get this all cleaned up. Gonna throw some etch primer on all the bare metal. We'll do our seam sealer, and yeah, we'll have this thing pretty much looking like the way that it was. And most importantly, it's going to be rust free. So get cleaning this up, and hopefully get this interior slapped back in maybe by the end of today. So underside is all buttoned and cleaned up. Got some seam sealer on the seams here. Want to make sure that we keep all of our moisture out. Got all of our cross member all tacked up there. You can see here's our factory seam. This is where we carried the floor pan out to. So a little bit wider, but it allows for us to keep this section here that usually always rots out. And I'll be sticking the Speedo cable up in the clip there in a minute. Got the seam sealer all spread out here. Not trying to make anything look too fancy because, well, it wasn't that fancy from factory either. So I'll go ahead, let that set up. We sprayed all our bare metal down with some etch primer first, and got that all coated. So the metal should be good and sealed up so we don't get any more rust. And once one little trick that you can do here with your seam sealer is a little bit of thinner on a paintbrush, and you can just kind of go over it and it'll smooth everything out. So just put it on sort of like I did, let it set up for a few minutes, and go over it with your brush with some thinner. Nice and smooth. Let it dry out. We'll be good to go. Paint is all dried up and cured. Put a nice top coat of the body color paint on the top there. Seam sealer is all dried up, so it's time to put the carpet back in, get the interior in. Got the detailer coming tomorrow. Get this green jewel, green emerald all shined up, cleaned up, and ready for sale.